Early September 2025 brought a decision that echoed far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. Lawmakers in Ouagadougou approved a measure outlawing homosexuality, introducing prison terms of 2 to 5 years, heavy fines, and expulsion for foreigners. Within hours, global powers, including the United Nations, the European Union, and the United States, issued sharp condemnations. Yet at the heart of the storm stood President Ibrahim Traoré, unyielding, declaring, "Those who enslaved our ancestors have no right to lecture us on morality today." On the first days of September, Burkina Faso's transitional parliament moved with remarkable speed. A long-debated bill, first introduced in July 2024, passed almost unanimously. Legislators portrayed it not simply as law, but as a bulwark protecting the country's cultural fabric. Justice Minister Adasso Rodrigo Baya summed it up bluntly. "Marriage and family are the bedrock of our traditions. This law preserves them." The penalties left no room for doubt. Same-sex acts, advocacy, or promotion of LGBTQ causes carried years of imprisonment and steep financial punishment. Foreign nationals would be immediately deported. For many Burkinabè, this was less about criminalization and more about resistance. In a country deeply influenced by Islam and Christianity, the law was framed as aligning with long-held beliefs. In markets, mothers selling produce said it shielded their children. In both mosques and churches, sermons praised Parliament for safeguarding values. This was also political. Since 2022, Traoré had expelled French troops, ended reliance on Paris, and built alliances with Mali and Niger. To him, true independence was more than controlling borders, it was also guarding identity. This legislation was his latest declaration of sovereignty. In the days following its passage, young activists rallied around the measure. The same students who once demanded French troops leave now proclaimed, "We chased out their soldiers. Now we chase out their ideas." To them, cultural sovereignty was a continuation of territorial freedom. Yet while celebrations filled public squares, anxiety spread in quieter corners. Members of the LGBTQ community, though small in number, feared exposure, arrest, or forced exile. Rights organizations abroad voiced alarm, but inside Burkina Faso, their warnings found little traction. Traoré capitalized on the moment. He spoke not of hatred, but of love for tradition, family, and ancestors. "Our spirit is not merchandise," he told a cheering crowd. His message resonated across fields and villages, where elders repeated his words as timeless truth. In a country long battered by insurgency and poverty, many saw the law not as punishment, but as a shield against foreign encroachment. Western capitals reacted swiftly. Statements of condemnation poured from Washington, Brussels, and Geneva. Headlines in European newspapers warned of a return to the past. Some aid agencies threatened to reconsider partnerships. But Traoré was defiant. Draped in the nation's colors, he answered sharply, "Sovereignty cannot be purchased. Our culture is not for export. Those who colonized us will not decide our destiny." His speeches spread quickly across Africa. In Lagos, Nairobi, and Accra, his quotes trended on social media. Supporters hailed him as a defender of dignity. Burkina Faso had become more than a country under strain. It was now a symbol of resistance. Burkina Faso's stance was part of a larger African trend. Uganda had passed a similar law in 2023. Nigeria had long enforced prohibitions. Ghana debated the same path. Analysts called it a continental pushback against Western social influence. In Ouagadougou, the symbolism was everywhere. Young artists painted Traoré on city walls with captions like, "Freedom through culture." His words were printed on posters and recited in schoolyards. Even in remote villages, people quoted his lines as if they were age-old proverbs. Still, the cost was real. LGBTQ individuals reported harassment, fear, and exile. International NGOs warned of worsening conditions. Yet within Burkina Faso, the narrative was framed not as persecution but as liberation from what locals called cultural imperialism. Western diplomats expressed concern, threatening sanctions. But Burkinabè voices pushed back. "Better to go hungry with honor than to eat with shame," said one farmer. That phrase echoed across radio stations, summing up the national mood. Pride mattered more than prosperity. Thus, two opposing visions collided. One insisted human rights are universal, beyond borders. The other insisted sovereignty means defining morality for oneself. Traoré placed his bet firmly on the latter. For now, much of his nation stood with him. The immediate consequence loomed over the economy. Aid groups warned of possible cuts to health and food programs. For a country where nearly half the population relied on subsistence farming, this risk was serious. Yet paradoxically, the more the West threatened, the more Burkina Faso's unity hardened. Students dismissed warnings. "We will not trade dignity for handouts," one declared. Opinion polls suggested Traoré's approval had reached unprecedented levels. Religious leaders offered rare unity. Muslim clerics and Christian priests, often divided, now shared pulpits in declaring that Traoré was defending divine order. This gave his leadership not just political legitimacy but spiritual weight. Meanwhile, new doors opened abroad. Russian officials promised closer ties. Chinese companies expressed interest in investment. Turkey offered trade opportunities. Mali and Niger stood in solidarity, framing the law as part of the Sahel's collective independence. Each denunciation from the West fueled Traoré's domestic stature. International rebukes were reframed as proof that he was defending his people. Social media buzzed with his speeches, turned into slogans of defiance across Africa. But a difficult question lingered. Could Burkina Faso's fragile economy survive without Western support? And would national unity endure if hardship deepened? For now, people embrace sacrifice in the name of dignity. History, however, suggested such unity was tested hardest when hunger struck. By late September, the divide was clear. In Western capitals, Burkina Faso was seen as regressing. Across Africa, many celebrated it as rising. Global newspapers portrayed Traoré as a firebrand exploiting tradition. African commentators hailed him as a cultural warrior, battling not with guns, but with principles. The law had become more than legislation, it was a statement of independence. For ordinary citizens, it represented protection of their values. For the young, it was proof that Africa could shape its future without permission. Traoré, once a young officer, had now become a continental symbol. His defiance inspired many who believed Africa needed leaders unafraid of Western disapproval. International condemnation was fierce. Aid and diplomacy hung in the balance. But inside Burkina Faso, citizens repeated a single message: our identity is not for sale. And so September 2025 would be remembered not only for a law, but for a declaration. A declaration that in Burkina Faso, sovereignty is more than borders. It is the right to decide who they are, on their own terms.